Welcome to the June 26, 2024 meeting of the Redmond Planning Commission. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call. Commissioner Aparna.
Present.
Commissioner Coleman.
Present.
Commissioner Gagne.
Present.
Commissioner Van Nyman.
Present.
Oops, you're a little bit quiet.
Present.
There we go. That's better. Vice Chair Whittier.
Present.
And I'm Chair Weston. Thank you to the following staff for being present tonight: Glenn Coyle, Becky Fry, Kim Dietz, Lisa Rigg, Ann Dettelbach, Jeff Thompson, Peter Holt, and Chris Wyatt. I look for a motion to approve the agenda. Oh, pardon me. First, Commissioner Copley?
Hello.
Copley, sorry.
So moved.
So now I look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, that's approved. And next I look for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 12th.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. So now it's time to hear public comment and items from the audience. This is specifically for topics that aren't addressed by our public hearing later tonight. So Glenn?
Okay, we have two speakers signed up. The first is David Morton.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm David Morton, Redmond 98053. On May 23, 2024, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, released the latest Toxic Substances Control Act, or TSCA, inventory, which is a list of all existing chemicals manufactured, processed, or imported in the U.S. The TSCA inventory now contains nearly 87,000 chemicals, of which over 42,000 are actively used in U.S. commerce. Many of these chemicals have found their way into our water, air, and food, including pesticides, herbicides, plastics, flame retardants, phthalates, PFAS, bisphenols, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and heavy metals, including arsenic, lead, and mercury, to name just a few. These are found in cleaning products, lawn care products, and more. Most of these compounds have not been adequately tested on humans. Biopsies of human fat reveal that our bodies contain banned compounds like DDT, PCBs, and dioxin. Over 200 known toxins have been found in the umbilical cord blood of human newborns. By comparison, cities like Redmond test their drinking water for 94 contaminants required by the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act and an additional 10 contaminants required by the state regulations outlined in the WAC. Redmond has received waivers for monitoring 5 contaminants, so in all, Redmond's drinking water is tested for 99 contaminants. Compare that to the 42,000 chemicals actively used in commerce, most of which have unknown effects on human health. The laboratories that test Redmond's drinking water use test methods that are not designed to detect most of these 42,000 chemicals, some of which may be present in Redmond's drinking water. The labs report the absence or presence of the 99 contaminants. That's a significant gap in drinking water safety that could be addressed with more comprehensive testing and regulation that protect public health from unmonitored toxic substances. Redmond can help protect its critical aquifer recharge area, or CARA, and reduce contamination of its drinking water by prohibiting the following land uses in the CARA: gas stations and fuel storage facilities, chemical manufacturing and storage sites, hazardous waste storage, treatment, and disposal sites, heavy industrial operations, landfills, large-scale operations using pesticides and fertilizers, mining and extraction activities, septic systems, car washes using harsh chemicals, and uncontrolled stormwater infiltration systems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker signed up is Eugenio Vidalis.
Hi, sorry. I thought it was like a sign-in. I'm just kind of here to watch and learn.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. So in that case, we are going to conclude our work on the legislative amendments for the Redmond zoning code rewrite Phase 3, bringing up Kim Dietz.
Good evening, Commissioners. In your packet for this evening is your report that reflects your discussion as well as your recommendation. So I'm here to represent that report this evening.
Great. So with that, I look for a motion to approve the Planning Commission recommendation and report for City Council on the legislative amendments for the Redmond zoning code rewrite Phase 3.
So moved. Second.
All right, is there any discussion? Nope. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then our next similar piece of work is to conclude our work on the Phase 2C elements for Redmond 2050, which includes land use, community development and design, and climate resilience and sustainability. Bringing up Glenn Coyle.
Yes, we're just here to approve the report for the recommendation that was made on May 29th.
Great. With that, I look for a motion to approve the Planning Commission recommendation and report for City Council on the land use element, the community development and design element, and the climate resilience and sustainability element for Redmond 2050.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. That's approved as well. All right, so next is our study session on the consolidation and streamlining package for the Redmond zoning code rewrite Phase 3. I'm seeing Becky here, but shall we do the public hearing first? Yes. So I think we're going to start with the public hearing, actually. Sorry about that, Becky. Next up, we have the public hearing on the water system plan and general wastewater plan for Redmond 2050. Bringing up Lisa Rigg, Ann Dettelbach, Jeff Thompson, and Peter Holt. Or a subset.
Good evening, Commissioners. We're here for the public hearing for the wastewater plan and the water system plan major amendments. I'll start with the wastewater plan. Oh, do you want to load the slides? There we go. Again, this is a major amendment to the 2021 wastewater plan to align with the Redmond 2050 comp plan. Identifies the wastewater system needs to accommodate growth as per the preferred alternatives in the Redmond 2050 comp plan. We reevaluated the 2021 plan. We updated maps, tables, text in chapters 2, 3, 4, and 6. We used computer modeling to ID pipes and lift stations that needed to be upsized or added to support the Redmond 2050 growth projections. The sewer system must be designed to handle peak flow events during the zoning build-out. And the two big areas that we evaluated were the downtown and the Overlake area. Additional analysis is needed in the downtown area, and the middle housing was modeled assuming a 20% of single-family parcels will develop by 2050, and no impact on the sewer system was predicted with the 20% spread out over the whole city. Additional analysis is needed in the downtown area because of the Lake Hills trunk line. It produces a backwater condition where sewer flows back towards into Redmond pipes. And we use a 100-year peak flow event, whereas King County uses a 20-year peak flow event. And we did that because of climate change. We made that change in the 2021 plan was the first time we did that. And we have capacity issues during the high sewer flow events. The city can address some of these issues by upsizing pipes. Other issues stem from the elevation of the King County trunk line. A flow monitoring program in downtown and other challenging locations to verify modeling predictions during heavy flow events. We'll be looking to do that. Our near-term proposal is the city will conduct the additional studies to identify viable solutions to downtown capacity issues. This would include building lift stations or rerouting sewage. And we're going to plan on adding language to the zoning code 21.17.10, limiting development to the 2030 zoning in the downtown area until we can figure out a solution for the 2050 build out. And then we would update the 2024 general sewer plan accordingly. I'll hand it over to Lisa.
All right. And I'm Lisa Rigg, Senior Engineer, and I'm here with Ann Dettelbach, Senior Planner, to talk a little bit about the water system plan. So the plan's required by Washington Administrative Code to identify our water system needs for the 10-year and the 20-year horizons. It's used to fulfill Growth Management Act requirements for the city's capital facilities planning, and it relies on modeling that is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. So in anticipation of the adoption of the Redmond 2050 plan, the population growth distribution numbers from the Redmond 2050 preferred alternative were used to inform our 10 and our 20-year growth projections. So our modeling does indicate that we'll have a storage deficit between now and 2033. But it's notable that this storage deficit was also identified in the previous plan, and so it's something we've known about, and it will need to be addressed in the future to support growth. So the shortfall is 3.3 million gallons for 2033, and that grows to 7.4 million gallons in 2043. And it's not a shortage of an available water supply at all. It's rather it's a shortfall in the amount of the total storage that's required per equivalent residential unit that's based on the city's requirement for fire flow. And the city's requirement for fire flow is quite conservative in that it's actually twice what Department of Health minimum standards are. So even though it's, if we were to go by Department of Health, we would not have a storage deficit at all. So, okay, and now my computer shut off. One moment. Okay, so most of our pipe improvements that we have planned will be built by developers, and then additional storage and some of the rebuilding of some of our aged infrastructure will be built by the city. So tonight we're just here for the public hearing and looking to move forward with answering any planning commission questions and moving forward with a recommendation, understanding that it's not at this meeting, but hopefully at the next meeting. And following that, it will move forward to City Council for review and adoption as part of the Redmond 2050 plan, and then will be go through the King County Council approval process and then finally adopted by the Department of Health. Do we have any questions on the public hearing portion?
So in that case, I'm going to open the public hearing. And Glenn, you can introduce our commenters.
Yes, we just have, we received one written comment, which you saw in your email, we'll publish, and then one in-person comment is David Morton.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm David Morton, Redmond 98053. The 2024 Water System Plan for the City of Redmond presents a comprehensive approach to managing the city's drinking water infrastructure and resources. Overall, the plan reflects a strong commitment to maintaining water quality, improving infrastructure, and ensuring sustainability. There are several aspects worth commending, one concern and one area that may have been overlooked. Positive aspects include, first, proactive contaminant protection. The emphasis on protecting the city's unconfined aquifer from contamination is commendable. By recognizing the aquifer's high susceptibility to surface contaminants, the city has taken prudent measures, including restrictive policies on reclaimed water use within the Critical Aquifer Recharge Area, or CARA, until further data ensures safety. Second, climate change adaptation. The integration of climate change research and planning into the water management strategy demonstrates foresight. The climate vulnerability risk assessment and strategy provides approaches to ensuring water supply reliability amid changing climatic conditions. Third, infrastructure investment. The planned investments in infrastructure upgrades, including pipe replacements, are crucial for maintaining long-term water quality and service reliability. Fourth, sustainability initiatives. Emphasizing sustainability through measures like water conservation programs and leak detection initiatives will help ensure water availability for future generations and reduce environmental impacts. And finally, fifth, the history and updates to the Wellhead Protection Program reflect a long-term commitment to water quality. Regular monitoring, public education, and stringent inspection protocols underscore the city's dedication to preventing groundwater contamination. An area of concern is the plan could emphasize more community engagement and education regarding water conservation, pollution prevention, and the importance of infrastructure projects. And a potentially overlooked area is that the plan might explore EPA drinking water treatment technologies that could offer enhanced removal of emerging contaminants like PFAS, pharmaceuticals, and personal care products, which are not fully addressed in the plan. In conclusion, the water system plan is thorough, well-structured, and demonstrates a commitment to water quality and sustainability. Addressing community engagement and advanced water treatment technologies could further enhance the plan's effectiveness and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no additional speakers.
All right, so in that case, I'm going to close the public hearing for the verbal portion, and we will leave the written testimony open, and then we're going to go back to staff for a study session.
Okay, I'm going to pull up the issues matrix. So it is focused on the water system plan. We had some general questions at the last meeting on the wastewater plan, but staff answered that and didn't really generate an issues matrix. So we just wanted to go through the issues matrix from the September meeting, and it was a September of last year, and then some additional questions there. So I'm going to pull that up on screen and go through that.
Great, and the goal is to close any that people are ready to close.
All right, well, I'll jump in. So we're here tonight to ensure that our water system plan's consistent with the 2050 land use assumptions and that it's in alignment with the Redmond 2050 themes of equity and inclusion, resilience, and sustainability. So I want to make sure that the items that have been presented in the comment matrix have been addressed to your satisfaction before moving forward. So if it's all right, what I'd like to do tonight is close out any of the items that don't have any additional comments, and then try to answer as many of the follow-up questions as possible and see if we can close out those items. And then for the remaining items, we can provide an email response prior to the next meeting, if that works.
That would be ideal. Yep.
Okay,
That's great.
All right.
Or it can just be included in line in the packet the same way we did with the September
Okay.
questions. That works too.
Yep, sounds good. So Council Member Aparna had some additional questions or some follow-ups. So I'm not sure if everybody has seen those or not. Okay, great. So the ones that it looks like we have, should I just go through the ones that I think are closed?
Well,
first?
maybe
Or
we'll just.
go one by one.
Since we haven't closed anything yet, let's start at line 1 and we can just work through
All right.
all the issues
sounds
and
good.
close as we go.
Okay. Sorry, kind of new to this.
Oh, no, it's fine.
All right, so on item 1, I guess I should bring this up myself so I can actually see what's going on. Let's see. Oh, right there, okay. So the first question was asking staff to confirm that climate vulnerability and climate change is built into the model that we use to support our water system plan development. And then the follow-up, so we had provided a response, and the follow-up question was, could we have Cascade Water Alliance explain what the process and the model look like with the special emphasis on Redmond? So what we would propose is that we reach out to Cascade and see if they can provide a presentation on their work on behalf of the city and what they're doing as far as planning for climate resiliency. But if we can, we would like to propose that as separate from the water system plan, something that we could bring forward to Planning Commission and Council if they're available to do that, because it's not necessarily integral to the water system plan moving forward, but it is important. Does that make sense?
I think it would, but it provides very valuable context to why we would approve the plan, because the plan automatically refers a lot to what Cascade is doing. So the assumption in the plan's assumptions are that they're doing their job and we will do ours, right? So for me, I don't know about the rest of the commission. I know it's not a direct impact on the plan, but it's a fundamental assumption. So it would be nice as supplementary material when we, it may not be material to the water supply plan itself, like you mentioned, but without that, I would have difficulty understanding if we've, dotted our I's and crossed our T's. So it would be supplementary material that I would request added to the report that we would send forward, because it feels like, yay, they're doing their job, and they probably are doing a wonderful job. It's just that the details are sparse even on the website. So.
Glenn.
As we noted, we'll try to get Cascade Water Lines, but most likely it won't fit in this timeline. We're thinking Q4 of this year or possibly into 2025 to have them presented Planning Commission. So just wanted to give that timeline context. So probably won't fit into this deliberation process, but we're happy to bring Cascade out and provide some additional.
What I would say on this is first of all, understand the reality of the schedule, so that makes a lot of sense to me. But the point that Commissioner Aparna is bringing up is actually helpful, because I do think when there are a lot of organizations in the line of responsibility, actually understanding those points of handoff is really helpful. Vice Chair.
It's a concern that I have, because the stakes are really high when we have an acknowledged water storage problem that takes many years to rectify. So if we don't have a mechanism to account for the unexpected through the storage, and our policies are dependent upon what Cascade Alliance is doing and how they're mitigating water shortages and managing water, I think it does have a material impact of how we think about the policies and whether the policies are sufficient to protect our water supply here for our city residents. So if the timeline requires that we make decisions sooner, and we're not going to have the opportunity to dig a little deeper, and I agree with Aparna, there's very little substance on the Cascade site, and we're looking at their report months and months and months out, or even next year, what opportunity do we have to make adjustments to policies if we find that what they're doing is inadequate or insufficient for the accountability that we have on our city residents?
All right, so in terms of what I'm hearing here is there's an acknowledgement that the schedule that we're in is the schedule that we're in, but what sort of options do we have in terms of actually, can we get maybe a little bit more specific about?
So just as a reminder, this is not a policy document. This is a functional plan, and its intention
Correct.
is to ensure consistency with the comprehensive plan, specifically the utilities and capital facilities elements.
Yep.
So in terms of deliberation process, it doesn't have that much impact on the plan itself. It's not going to have an impact on what's in the plan or anything like that, because what we're focusing really on is consistency with the Growth Management Act. So in terms of your deliberation, that's really where the considerations would be in terms of making a recommendation or not.
Okay, Commissioner Aparna?
So am I to, like, maybe I've got this wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the latest technical report from Cascade is what you are referencing in terms of numbers, right? In terms of how much supply is coming in, adequacy of all your calculations are based on some report from Cascade, correct?
Well, they're based on what the supply that Cascade has committed to provide, and Cascade actually has a significant surplus beyond that. So even with their current supply, there's what they've committed to is much less than the capacity that they have to produce or to provide water. And then in addition, they're which kind of a later question, but they're working on the lake taps. They have the rights to develop lake taps as a reservoir, but they're also working with Tacoma Water as an additional water supply, which would actually make it so they would not have to develop lake taps as soon.
But is there a report that, like, where did, Redmond clearly feels like there's a commitment. Mm-hmm. What was the vehicle for that commitment?
So we have an agreement, a binding agreement with Cascade Water Alliance, and the mayor is on the board. Basically, every city that's part of Cascade is represented on their board. And so they're really driving the decisions and, are all very well integrated into the process and the decision-making and the commitments, so.
Do you know if the board I completely appreciate that answer, but then also appreciate the feeling that there's like this missing gap. Mm-hmm. Do you know if the board produces some sort of annual report that isn't on their website, or, because I think multiple of us have kind of gone through this route of trying to find more information. Right.
Well, they actually did, and I did not know this, and Jeff provided, Churchill provided information. They did didn't Cascade do a presentation, I believe, to council? So.
Yes, Jeff indicated that at some point this year, and I don't know the exact date, but if you, this did a presentation to City Council related to some of the MOU and some of those updates and things like that, but I have not seen that, but it's probably.
Yep, but I can provide, they did that earlier this year, and apparently significant discussion of lake taps and the Seattle-Tacoma agreement, and I can provide a link to the video and slides that they had for that, and so hopefully that'll help. I can send that after this meeting.
That would be great. And then maybe if commissioners have additional specific questions, they can follow up.
Yeah.
Does that work?
That sounds great.
Commissioner Aparna.
I was wondering if there was any technical report that you received from Cascade that you can share. So the way I look at it is we have a policy, we have policies talking about how we're going to handle water in Redmond 2050. Then we have the water supply plan, which talks about how all the water is coming in, what the pipes are, what's happening within the city. What's missing is that piece connecting the two. So in my mind, a technical report from Cascade Water Alliance, like even if it's dense, will do the trick for us to understand how it's bridging it. So that's my, like a lot of my follow-up is related to how do we know, yes, we have an MOU, we have a whole bunch of cities in the same boat, pardon the pun, but, so we understand that, and we understand that they have promised us this water. But where is that modeling? Where is that analysis? On what basis are they saying they're providing us this?
Just to kind of bring it into a close, hopefully. I just did a quick search through their board meeting packets, and they currently have a consultant on board through the end of the year doing a climate impact study. And there's a whole bunch of information in their packets, so we could probably send out an email and get a summary of what that study includes. The brief in the packets, it says identifying environmental conditions such as climate change and developing strategies to mitigate impacts on the Cascades long-term supply. And so it is anticipated to be completed by the end of 2024, according to their board meeting packets. So we could reach out and ask for some additional information on their study.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Actually, that's what I'm looking for, something from their side to tie the narrative of what you're saying.
Okay, thank you. This sounds like a really good resolution, so we'll look for that in our next packet.
Sounds great.
Great. And we'll leave that one open for
Yes.
the moment so we can return back to it.
All right. So,
And actually, do we want to leave one open or two? Close one and
We
keep
can
two open?
close one and leave two open so we can get all that information. Yeah, it's sort of related.
all right. And then, okay. So number 3, mention the various strategies to reduce pressure on water supply, including additional storage, water conservation, gray water reuse. And so we had provided an answer to that and did not have any additional follow-up questions. So I wanted to find out if that one is okay to close.
I am fine with the answer, Chair.
Okay, my questions were specifically about the gray water, and I'm fine with this. I still think that in certain parts of the city could be a great idea, especially for residential, systems, but this answer is great,
Okay.
so we can close. This one feels like a duplicate to me. Should we just leave the first one open? Oh, sorry, number 4.
Yeah. And I actually had a little bit of additional information on 4. So the extended contracts, if we're, let's see. If we're able to extend our contracts and with Tacoma Water, it would delay development needs of lake taps to the 2060s. So basically now they're planning on bringing it online in 2042, and that would push it out to 2064. And the other CWA member cities are on board, and the Cascade Water Alliance Board unanimously adopted a resolution in May to direct city staff to negotiate contract terms with Tacoma Water.
Thank you. Yeah, if you can just formalize that response in the issue matrix, we can close it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So on to number 5, we provided an answer and then had an additional follow-up. Would it be possible to expand on potential ideas on how Redmond and CWA plan to manage systems? And can we get someone from CWA to address specifically our city? And can we share strategies being employed to increase production at Well 4? So part of that kind of wraps around to the first question, but water use for now and the future are outlined in the city's agreement with Cascade. And any updates or changes in how the systems are managed would be determined by the board of directors and management of CWA. And for the well, the city has budgeted one-time funds for a study on Well 4 to determine the best course of action to move forward with improving the well performance and making sure that we maintain our full water right for Well 4. We are continuing to implement more stringent requirements on temporary and permanent dewatering and throughout all the CARA to ensure that we're really protecting that well drawdown.
I think we can close it if you formalize this response, so thank you. Yeah, Well 4 seems to be critical.
All right. So on to 6, we did not receive any additional follow-up questions on that one.
And Commissioner Van Nymen?
I'm very impressed. Thank you. You can close it.
Thank you so much. All right. And number 7.
I'm satisfied with the response.
Okay.
And I'm also satisfied with what your follow-up actions are from the earlier conversation. So with that in mind, you can close this.
Okay. Great. So on number 8. Let's see, we did not have any additional comments on number 8.
No, and I appreciate the response, especially the way the city's measuring.
Okay.
That was very satisfying. So you can close.
Okay. And number 9.
And then this was mostly informational for a new commissioner. So you can close. Thank you.
Okay. And 10, did not have any additional comments because it was related to more to the sewer plan.
Right, and that can close. Thank you.
And then number 11.
So I think this was satisfactory. I kind of wanted to make sure that my name was on this, but it generated kind of agreement from other commissioners. So I just wanted to make sure everyone else was satisfied with this answer. For the new commissioners who weren't here, this was a question about pipe or like anticipated pipe failures. We know we have some types of pipes that are reaching the end of their lifetime. So how is the city tracking those or mapping them or planning for their inevitable replacement? And so Commissioner Aparna.
I actually had a follow-up question. Sure. How do we know, like, I know that you've mentioned that certain types of materials are likely highest risk of failure, right? But let's say something fails. How does the city know that some pipe has failed, which maybe it wasn't a high-risk pipe, but it failed anyway? So is there, like, other than something gushing out, is there something else that is monitored to know that there's, you know, it could be seeping underground as well, right? So.
Would,
Being that water lines are pressurized, you know it when they fail. I mean, you can have some leakage that could go for a while, but when failure occurs, it comes to the surface and makes a mess. And I mean, you could, you could, we monitor the reservoir levels, and if you saw like a rapid decline in the reservoir levels, you would think, something's up. But usually somebody's calling you right away, like, or a roadway is all messed up because usually they're in the road, right? So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Coleman.
Just had a quick clarification. In here, it talks a little bit more about working in coordination with street overlay projects. It just, I think this is what you mean. It's just, if we've got projects which open up the opportunity to make some replacements, we would take advantage of doing that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, that we would do the work ahead of time in anticipation of the overlay, so we're not having to go back and
Rip it all up.
rip up a new road, right?
And we're currently starting final design of a project like that on 24th Street, Northeast 24th Street, and we're going to kick off a preliminary design of a project on Avondale Road that's an overlay that has substandard water pipe that we're going to replace first.
Great, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. So this one can close. Thank you.
Okay.
Number 11.
So on number 12, there was a follow-up question on how do the new CARA regulations and policies impact wellhead protection systems? And can we look at a more continuous monitoring of quantity quality through automation? And this one, just so I make sure I get a really good solid answer, I would like to respond by email and then include it in the next package, if that.
Yeah, the next packet is great.
Next package, perfect.
And it can go right in the issues matrix because email does not actually get captured
Oh, okay.
in the public record. So we wanted the answer to go to council.
Okay.
Commissioner Aparna.
I actually would like to add a follow-up on that, based on the public comment we've heard, in terms of when we say quality monitoring, what I know that Dr. Martin talked about the number of chemicals. Is there a sense that we might want to expand that, given the fact that we are now using more chemicals than ever? So it should be a shifting line in terms of what we monitor for. So can you kind of respond to what could be in the works, not what is there right now, but what could potentially be a plan maybe next round?
Right. So one of the, you can jump in if I'm off, but one of the big concerns that's been in the news quite a bit lately is PFAS. We have been monitoring for that for quite some time. We are not, we have had at least one detection of PFAS in one of our monitoring wells. We're not to the level of, that would require mitigation, but we're, as the science is moving forward, we're following it and monitoring what we'll need to do to be proactive to make sure that we are meeting all of the requirements as they come into place and ensuring that we have any treatment facilities necessary to do that. The treatment for PFAS is basically like a carbon filter system. So it would be an additional treatment system that we would need to install for any wells that had that concern.
Commissioner Woodyer, or sorry, Vice Chair Woodyer.
As the science continues to evolve, and it seems to be evolving at a rapid rate, what is the time that it takes to respond to that? So if we have to update our policies or update our filtrations, systems, et cetera, is that a long horizon or is that a fairly quick horizon? Like, how long does it take to respond to that?
It's a pretty long, I mean, it's a long horizon. So as the new regulations are coming into play, there's several years of, they're just starting to adopt the new regulations, I believe. And there are several years of monitoring that occur prior to any mitigation needing to happen. So we're already ahead on the monitoring portion of that. So
Could I follow up on that? So policies probably wouldn't change, but in terms of the impact on the plan, if there's a new regulation, do you have to reissue the plan, or is it?
We do not. So the plan is really, as you've commented, it's fairly high level. It's a snapshot in time. So by the time it's adopted, things will have changed. And while we're constantly changing policies and codes and implementing new policies to keep up with federal and state requirements, but that doesn't require that the plan be updated. So really, we would only need to update the plan every 10 years is.
Okay. And when you say policy, you're saying like a rule that's in place on the ground, not policies like the comp plan policies that we've been reviewing?
Yep.
Okay, good. Just checking. Thank you. So number 12,
All right.
keep or close?
Yeah, I think she said that she would get us more information.
Right. 12 will keep
Okay.
open, and then I will provide the additional information.
Great.
So number 13, the question was, there was a question on follow-up on water rights. What happens to private wells if lots subdivide? And in the hypothetical situation where the state loosens municipal water law policies, how are residents protected and guaranteed water without it being privatized? And will the Redmond zoning code, which specifies city as the water service provider in our service area, still hold? And so when a parcel comes in for a subdivision, they're required to connect all lots to city water because we have comp plan policies and code policies that, in zoning code, that say that the city shall be the provider of water. So we don't allow them to use an existing private well to serve either the existing home on the property or any new lots. And as far as if the water rights or the municipal water law changes, that's kind of setting the minimum. So we still set our own rules that can be more prescriptive or more prohibitive. So.
Thank you. I think we can close this if you just formalize a response for the follow-ups, because
Perfect.
I think it answers all.
Okay. Let's see. So number 14, the follow-up question was, or annual updates should include not only current quantity and quality, but also state of the water in Redmond, including projection versus performance. Analyses accounting for growth and climate change, aquifer recharge rates. The benchmarking data will be a great addition for people, keeping people informed, especially when water shortages hit. Water conservation needs people to rethink planting, irrigation. The report should bridge the current state with the desired actions. And on this one, we would like to follow up in email. It's partially really outside of the scope of the water system plan itself, which is it does talk about conservation, but at a higher level. But there are other citywide programs and efforts that would address it more thoroughly.
Thank you. Yes, if you can, it's basically making sure, because the city does mail out to everybody, right?
Right.
So this should be a directive to whoever's mailing out, that we want to know because for me, a lot of times we plan, but we don't know where we stand against the plan a year down. So I think the city needs to know, because the city also needs to be aware when things go south, it shouldn't come as a surprise.
Right.
Right?
So I have a little bit of an alternate opinion on this one, because I feel like the city is actually providing updates and status.
They offer what is the current state, but not what was projected or what is future. There's no projections, nor is there a performance scorecard. I looked at the water report.
But I actually agree with the comment that I don't think that's part of necessarily the plan. Like, I don't think that's part of this conversation right now.
I agree.
So
But
I feel like this should be
I think it should be a
closed.
directive in our recommendations that it goes into, because the response says that the city puts out these reports and that's how we get informed. So then we need to make sure that whoever is going to write this response, that gets directed. It's not necessarily the supply plan. But because
I'm actually not talking about that. I'm just saying it's like we shouldn't be keeping this issue open in the issues matrix, because it's not really, like, it's not part of the current plan. Like, it's a totally reasonable thing to request, but I don't think it.
No, that's why I was
should be kept
saying that
open.
it should, if it close it, it's just basically saying that we would direct, it's basically leaving it open for whoever needs to act, not you, but whoever needs to act on it.
Okay.
As a directive to the city to keep it open, that way, not the comment itself.
Okay, to keep it open, terminology was confusing me.
Okay.
So we could
So we will
the
close
item,
this.
but keep the issue.
Or perhaps just note in the issues matrix that there is a request for more forward-looking communication or projections to the community, not just current status, as one opinion.
One thing that you can also keep in mind too, in your planning commission report, with the recommendation for approval, I'm assuming that you might have a couple of bullet points underneath it recommending, yeah. So that could be one way to go ahead and close it, but keep the continuity of the direction.
Actually, that's exactly what I meant, but I said it so badly, so.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right, on to 16. So,
This is Commissioner Van Nymen.
all right. And that was, could you please share more details on what it would take to build the reservoirs, find sites and storage? And when does the planning start for this? And what is the projected budget in today's dollars for this? I would like to follow up with this in a detailed email. I did talk about it a little last meeting that we are planning on doing the at least one additional reservoir at Reservoir Park and the Education Hill Reservoir site, and that I believe the cost for that is around $24 million in the very preliminary estimate. But I can verify with all that in email.
Okay, so maybe if you add that, and not email again, but in the
sorry, in
issues
the
matrix.
Yes.
No, totally.
Yep.
So if you could bring that back for the next meeting, then Commissioner Van Nymen can review fully at that point.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, mainly what I was trying to get at was I like the 14% by 2033 and 31% by, like, I'm trying to get some scale of what the growth rate is.
Right.
Commissioner Copley.
Just looking for clarity on the issue number 15, it says scope of water shortage shortfall. Just want to make sure that that's supposed to mean storage. And then also in the discussion notes to the right of it, it says predicted water supply shortage. I don't think we have a water supply shortage. Is that fair?
No, it's storage only.
Yeah, storage, yes.
And again,
Okay, I think that should be updated.
Yeah, there's just, I think, a typo in both of those in the issues matrix, so if those could just be corrected too, that would be great.
All right.
Commissioner Aparna.
I had a follow-up question on this, which I sent, which was, we share tanks, right, with Bellevue, I don't know, Kirkland as well, right? So if they are growing, we are growing, and we have currently an understanding this percentage and that percentage. And with the growth, what do those percentages look like with the projected growth? Because will that shift, or are we assuming that we're all growing in the same?
So the percentages, the storage percentages are, we have interlocal agreements with Bellevue and Kirkland that state what percentage we get.
Right.
And so that's basically what you're allowed to count in your water system planning.
Okay.
As Jeff had mentioned in our last meeting, a lot of that storage is based on fire supply, not day-to-day demand. And so the reality is it's not like they would shut down a tank if there was a fire in Redmond and we had to take more than our share.
Right.
It would just, I mean, they refill the tanks, so.
And just for clarity, are we on 15 or 16 right now?
15.
Okay.
No, I was just curious because the interlocal, I don't know how to pronounce that, agreement, whatever we have decided so that is likely to change based on their comp plan and our comp plan. Is that the correct understanding?
So they would not get a higher percentage of the water unless the agreements were redone. So the actual percentages, it's set.
And it's not going to be on the table for discussion just
It
yet?
would have to, no, it would have to be agreed to by all of the municipalities engaged. So, so for example, Kirkland is eventually going to rebuild their South Rose Hill Reservoir. And they're looking at adding additional storage as part of that. So they're going to make a much bigger tank. And so if it's advantageous to the city, which it probably would be, at some point when that moves forward, we may wish to renegotiate the agreement and get additional storage.
Makes so much sense, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. And so that, are people ready to close 16? We also had Vice Chair Woodier and Commissioner Van Nymen on that response.
Yeah, I'm good.
Great. All right. So we'll close 16, but leave 15 open for additional information.
Okay. All right, so on to 17. We did have a follow-up question. Is it working well for me to just read them like I have been? Is that, okay. Can you please share the breakdown of uses for these top 10 consumers? What percentage is irrigation and landscaping? Also, in the case of Microsoft, is there a data center component? And what percentage is that? Also, which ones lie in the CARA? For context, this could potentially lay the groundwork to use reclaimed water for non-potable uses or targeted measures for reducing consumption of these consumers. So I'm honestly not sure if that information is available through utility billing. We do have what's used for each separate meter, so they have different meters for irrigation. I believe they have, for their cooling towers, it's a separate meter, so I'll have to follow up and see what's available and include it in the next matrix. And I should be able to determine which of the properties in the top 10 are within the CARA. So we did talk a little bit last week, or excuse me, last meeting, on if it's a matter of bringing reclaimed water, that it does need to be a separate pipe system, so it would, even if it is something that the city agrees to, it would, the end user would need to front the cost to bring that water, and so, it would have to be a pretty significant use.
So just like zooming out a little bit on that particular question, is that something that to you would make sense to pursue, or is that not wise at this point? I know it's sort of straddling in
It would be
between the two
very
areas.
expensive you'd have to have a whole different piping system in the streets. So you'd have sewer, you have water, and then there's separation difference. You have to have them so far apart from each other to meet the Department of Health and Department of Ecology standards. So it would be very expensive to do something like that. Microsoft's doing rainwater harvesting, so that it's not really reused, but it kind of is, it's not treated sewage, but it's a way to not have to clean water to a drinking water standard and use it to irrigate or flush toilets or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. Does that answer, or does that help decide whether to keep open or?
Personally, for me, it's understanding what happens if there's a water shortage. Like, this is the scenario I'm playing out in my head, right? If there's a water shortage, and I know that the city and Marymore Park, we would not water as much and so on. Those are very obvious irrigation conservation measures, right? But for me, where I'm trying to understand is the ponds and the pools and all of that, which gets good water. If they're going to pay for that in a bad year, okay, they're paying for it, but it still means that somebody who is, let's say, not as well off, because these are businesses or like more, I don't know, more well off people, maybe consumers. We are expecting the rates to go up when things are tight, right? So I feel that it's not very equitable if we don't see where this water is going. So that's why I'm asking these questions. So I know it might not be a water supply plan, but if we have the data, it's maybe in the next round we can talk about these things as policies. Yeah.
So one of the appendices is our water shortage contingency plan, and we follow what Cascade directs, which they follow what Seattle directs. So when Seattle goes into a shortage, first it's voluntary curtailment of water any way that you can. And then sometime it gets to a point where you're not allowed to irrigate. No irrigation water. So sometimes the unnecessary uses are just cut off if it got to that point, and only the necessary uses for consumption. People are even asked to take shorter showers, stuff like that. So really it's irrigation that is kind of the luxury use of water. Right, and if there's a shortage, that's the first thing that gets cut off, and even to the point where there's authority by the city to go out and ticket people or shut their meter off if they're not complying, and if it got to that level of a shortage. So it's an appendices in the plan. Yeah.
Sure, Coleman.
So this question I thought was different, which to me seemed to be, for example, with a large employers here, like Microsoft that you've got here, what percentage of water usage outside of other general water usage compared to people who are living here in a community, what percentage do they have? And so therefore, when you get to the point of like, who do we actually cut off? At what point do you say, hey, we would optimize for residents versus businesses, or businesses would be first to have an impact so that residences where people actually live have less? I don't know if there's a policy on that. That's what I was reading from this, and I don't think, not sure if that's what you were trying to get to.
I think he's right that that's what I'm getting at, but we need the data to kind of understand. So if it's all about irrigation and we say, okay, irrigation goes out the window first, that's great. But if it's a business, right? So that's why I was trying to get the breakdown on the data center piece, because they're very water intensive. And if there is no data, we can close it perhaps, but I would like to see if we can at least have that to at least understand what comes next.
So what pardon me.
I was going to say, certainly there's data that has commercial, add up the commercial water consumption through the commercial meters versus the residential meters. You can do it. I don't think it will ever get to where there's a shortage to where we're telling certain businesses that they can't use their restroom facilities or their drinking water, or, and I think if you asked Microsoft, they would even say there's not a time where they can't use their cooling towers, right? I mean, that would be considered essential use, right? So it really just boils down to irrigation and washing your car, right? I mean, those are the uses in a shortage that goes away. Nobody else is told, hey, businesses, you can't use your restroom facilities, and we're only going to let residential units use water now. It would just, I wouldn't get to that stage.
So I think what I would say in this one to me is it seems like you're asking for data to support a policy conversation, but I'm not sure that's the right, it's like asking to produce data to support an argument that I don't think we really need to discuss in this document.
I look at it like this. If we have this data, the water shortage plans, which are very broad, we have some answers. We can make recommendations for that. It may not be directly on this document, but it's referencing a whole bunch of documents. The water shortage plan and all of that are either appendices or extra documents. So I'm looking at it as shoring up what we look at, because the way I see it is a policy is just intention. This is implementation. If we know where we're at and we have a mature water shortage plan, awesome. But without this because this isn't a
I think
table.
what you're asking for here isn't an appropriate way to get to what you're trying to get to. Because I think what you're trying to say is we want to make sure that in a true shortage situation, only certain uses are prioritized and the rest are deemed. But asking for like largest user, it's like, it's not apples to apples, like what you're asking for. So I kind of think it would be, like, if you could reframe it, like, asking for data here doesn't seem like the solution that you're getting to me. It seems like what you were trying to say is if Redmond reached a point where we have to decide who gets water and for what purposes, that there's a plan in place to prioritize that so that essential uses are getting water and it's not inequitable. Am I summarizing correctly? Commissioner Coleman.
Sorry, mine's a simple question. Like, is there a scenario plan between who gets what first, between businesses and residents?
No. It just boils down to no irrigation. I mean, the only difference between consuming water, most of the difference in the consumption of water in the summer versus I'll call it the low season, is irrigation.
All right.
You know, there might be some people fill up some pools, they wash their cars. So that's the usage that gets cut in a water shortage. And it's several levels of water shortage, where they're making hey, we're in level 2 now type of a deal, or we're level 3 now. It would never get to the point where we don't have anything that says businesses can't use essential water for their employees versus residents have it.
My follow-up, so for non-essential, like no sort of irrigation, so, no watering the grass on whatever the buildings are, or no having kind of your beautiful ponds with whatever you've got on them, that would be the same for businesses and for residents at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, golf courses, Willows Run, they use reclaimed water, so maybe they would still get to water. But even a scenario where if that was the water they needed to water their golf course, they would still have to be cut off. Parks would be cut off from using water to water the park grass.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That answers my question.
So given that, is it possible to close?
So I still think it would be nice if we could get some breakdown, just because this will help us in the future.
I don't think it will. Like, when you do what they're saying, of things aren't metered in a way where you can tell if they're using it for essential
Right, no.
purposes
So
or
for
not,
me,
just by
then
getting a number of gallons.
With Microsoft at 130 million gallons, we should know, as a city, it would be nice if we knew, simply because we should know how to manage it if something goes south. But if we don't have the data, it's fine. Like, my way of looking at it is, if the table says these are the top 10 consumers, but it doesn't give any more granularity on where that water is going, right? So
What if we gave you like just a total of here's how much irrigation water is sold in the city on the last year that we have the data for, and here's how much commercial water came out of commercial meters, and here's how much water came out of residential meters. Now, the thing to note is when a resident fires up their sprinkler system, it's
the same thing.
It's the same water. They don't differentiate they don't have different meters for that in most cases. So there could be a breakdown. Matter of fact, that might even be.
Actually, so hold on just a second. So we're at an hour, and I still have 3 things on the issues matrix. What I'd like to just have a gut check from Commissioner Aparna is, given that what you're asking for doesn't really support the goals that you have in mind, could we close this, please? Or can you rephrase it a different way so that...
No, I think he had the right thing. You said it. If we just had a broad breakdown, like overall, at least we know what's happening.
May I make a
Becky,
recommendation
sure.
here? I would recommend that we go ahead and close this pending additional information, but recognizing that information won't change anything in the plan or the appendices. Just go ahead and close it out so that we can move forward with the adoption of this plan. but we can get whatever information is available and share that.
Certainly. Yeah.
That sounds fair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think we still have 3, and then I want to give people time to add any additional issues to the matrix before we close out for the evening. So we're going to spend about an extra 10 minutes on this, but maybe with less discussion. We'll just try to wrap through. And if you don't have what you need to close, then just say that and briefly say the question that you still need additional information for. Okay, so we'll move to 18.
Okay, so the follow-up was the Appendix G is from 2016. Lots has changed since then. Growth, changing climate conditions. Can we please look into updating this? Seems like all the details from the city and CWA are dated from 2016. I believe this will be key in helping residents understand how the city approaches the curtailment measures moving forward. And actually, Public Works has submitted for one-time monies in our budget request to update the plan. So we're hoping to do that.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, if you can just formalize that response, we can
Updating
close it.
the water shortage response plan. Yeah. All right. And 19 was, the follow-up was, what would be involved in understanding whether reclaimed water can be used in non-CARA areas? Is this something we should be looking at? And if not now, when? And I think we've already kind of discussed that a bit.
Commissioner Van Nyman, do you need additional information? Is she still here?
I am, sorry. I
sorry.
had
Great.
some things going on in the background, so I
Absolutely.
uncamered myself. I have an ice pack on my. No, I think that actually I think addresses it pretty clearly.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. And
20.
20, is there a rate study planned in the future? We are actually currently, this was regarding the possibility of doing different rates. Right now, Finance is working on a rate study for utilities, for water, wastewater, and stormwater. And under that current study, changing how the rates are determined, it's not part of the scope. But it's something that could be proposed to finance outside of the water system plan for future studies.
Thank you. We can close this, but can you please note that this will be one of those recommendations we put moving forward?
To call out in the packet?
Yes.
Great. All right, so with that, first of all, we reached out the end of the current issues matrix, so that's great. What I want to do is open it up for additional questions that have come in for commissioners on both the water plan and the wastewater plan. Does anyone have anything else to add? All right. Amazing. Okay, so in that case, I think we are wrapped tonight with the addition of the things that need to be actually put in the matrix that were verbal responses tonight.
All right.
But I think we're good. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. All right, next up is now the study session on the consolidation and streamlining package for the Redmond zoning code rewrite phase 3. And bringing up Becky and Kim.
So for this item, we are just looking for report approval this evening. If there's any additional items that you need to discuss before that, but what we're just asking for is a motion for approval.
Wait, I'm sorry, for the consolidation and streamlining?
Oh, no, sorry, you skipped me. Go back to item number 6. You skipped me to have the public hearing first. So I'm going back to the Phase 2C elements.
We already passed that, luckily. So,
Did we?
yep,
I thought we did the report approval for legislative amendments.
we did
Oh,
both.
okay.
We were very
Thank you.
efficient.
Never mind. So efficient. Okay, thank you, guys.
Yep. Thanks for checking.
Yeah, I'd hate to miss that one. And thank you for that, because that was a really big
Yes.
report approval package. So, Okay, so for consolidation and streamlining, first I want to just briefly show you something that is going to change in the next draft of 2104. So we're making a change based off some additional discussion that we're having, preparing for the 2025 code package. Okay. So one of the things I mentioned previously is that as we're starting to consolidate all of the other zones and all of these special regulations that are currently hidden in tables and all sorts of places, but could also be in 2110 or in some of the other places, they're just kind of all over the place. And then we don't have a place for adding new things, like we do want to add a food truck court. As special regulations, we do need to formalize kiosks and all those things, just getting them in a place that people knows where to find them. So we had some discussion, and our director has given me direction to move all of the special regulations into 2104. And so if that is the case, what we're going to do from a structure standpoint is I've added a new section 300 for special regulations for residential uses, 400 for non-residential uses, and then I've renumbered the non-conforming use section to 500. So I just wanted to let you know that is going to be coming. It will allow us to expand and clarify and make things so much easier for people to figure out what the requirements are going to be in the future. And so I just wanted to point that out, let you know, in the next draft, I'm only putting placeholders here so that the numbering for the non-conforming move is accurate. But in the 2025 code package, all of that moving will take place. And then anything new that we want to add will then also be put into the structure. So there's a couple of other things that we're working through, and I mentioned last time some of the notes might look a little different, but I'm not going to worry about that this evening. But we are finalizing the omnibus package, which, as you remember, includes, we've moved all this to that, and within the next couple of days, we'll have all of that published. And then so the next version of these chapters will appear in that omnibus package publication. So we're trying to do it by the end of this week. With the holidays and everything going on this week, it may not be the end of this week, but it is just a couple days away. We got tech committee approval this morning. So. Okay. So the issues matrix, I'm going to open up, and we're just going to start from the top, and we'll go through what is there, see if we are ready to close any of these, or if there's any additional information you guys want to do to keep them open, and then we'll give a chance to add anything new. So the first one, it does have Chair Weston, your name on it, but I do believe that there was a number of other folks interested in this one as well. But we've put in here the definitions that were requested, if we're okay with closing that one.
Yeah, and just to clarify, my major concern about this is that, especially looking towards middle housing, that there are some new styles of prefabricating homes that can be really good for both keeping costs down for affordable housing and can be really helpful for like highly resilient homes that are like passive houses and that sort of building envelope considerations where people might not be experienced in building them here, but then there's a lot of work to make things that are a little bit more like shipped and then assembled on site. And I just wanted to make sure that Redmond's code wasn't blocking those, because they really hit two of our top concerns with affordable housing and that resiliency piece. And so the definitions are helpful, but I think what is missing here is making sure that that Redmond, because currently I believe, it's hard for me to tell whether or not they're blocked. Like we got into a little bit of a prefab versus manufactured conversation on this, but I really want to make sure that those prefab options are permitted if possible. And suiting fire codes and all of those other pieces that Redmond sometimes has a higher standard like, I don't necessarily want to touch those, but if we can kind of clear a path to permitting them, that would be great. Commissioner Aparna.
Yeah, I think you're spot on it's the type of construction that we're looking at, right? So we could be talking about container homes. We could be talking about 3D printed homes. It's really cool. But
No, that was for the container homes. I'm like,
no, but the container homes are actually, there are a whole bunch of fabricators who are designing it to fire codes and everything else. So it would be nice to have that as, if there are certain manufacturers or certain specs that are already approved, especially for the prefab piece, then I just plug and play, right?
Well, I recommend keeping this one open, and we'll confirm with our building official about the building code question.
that'd be great. And I know Seattle, Kirkland, and Bellevue have all addressed this in completely different ways. So it would just be nice to have kind of a front and center answer on what Redmond's
Perfect.
choosing to do there.
We'll check with our building official, and we'll let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, the second one, Aparna's email said go ahead and close that one. The third one, multifamily versus multi-dwelling. Commissioner Copley, are we okay to close this one today?
Yeah. I think so.
Thank you. And Commissioner Parna allowed us to do open space number 1 is closed. Oh, hey, before we move to open space, are there anything else that we want to add to land use? Any new issues?
Looks like no, not at this time.
Okay. All right, so open space number 2, it's a question about POPs. Chair Weston?
Oh, sorry, this is me. 1 second. So this was helpful. The biggest question I still had on this was whether we would expect that individuals would have to pay to access these spaces, or are they free? So is the public paying something to use these spaces, or are they community resources?
It depends on the programming aspect.
Okay.
So think of, for example, a plaza having a concert or something. That would be most likely free. But if it were a space for a class, that would most likely be a fee through our park system.
Okay. So the situation I was trying to avoid is something that could be sold as an amenity for a building, but is like, you'd have to, it almost seems like double dipping to me to be able to sell, like, as if you had apartments or condos or whatever, and they're using the space as an amenity, so like a pool or something, but it's only accessible to the public if they pay a membership fee. Doesn't actually feel, which could be set at whatever price point, that doesn't actually feel like it should count.
Yeah, and I don't think the fee would be a membership fee. It would be specific to the actual programming that happened in it.
That makes tons of sense. I just didn't see that distinction really called out.
Yeah, let us follow up on, if there's time, let us follow up on that one, because I think the answer is very similar to what I said, but I just want to make 100% sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll keep this one open for now.
Okay, thank you. And specifically, that ties into equity to me, because if it's sort of a luxury space, it's only available to a small number of people, then it doesn't feel like that should count under the public access definition.
Okay, Commissioner Parna allowed us to close item number 3. For item number 4, that was a clarification we provided at the last meeting. Are we okay, Commissioner Copley, to close this one?
We are.
Thank you. And then this next one, item number 5, we don't have a staff response yet, so I'm going to keep that open.
Okay. Do I need to provide any clarification on that, or?
No, we just haven't had time to
That
get a
makes
response.
so much sense. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Coleman.
I wasn't here. This is something that actually is quite key question for me too. So I'm interested
Yeah.
in just the background. I think we can do that here or do it separately.
So in the discussion about Redmond Town Center last fall, so or almost a year ago now, actually, there was discussion that part of the zoning in that space was set aside for a Saturday market, and other uses like parking could happen when the market wasn't in session. And then in this draft, that was, the entire mention of a Saturday market was struck. But that seemed odd to me because I thought that there was a stronger sense of, like, the market is entitled to be there. And so I wanted clarification on why it was struck and why, like, if that agreement was no longer in place. Because my understanding is that, like, it was designated that way historically, and it's still important to a lot of residents, even if it's not currently happening there every Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, the Saturday market's moved, as far as I was aware, temporarily to the church.
Correct.
And that this space originally was built specifically for a Saturday market.
Right.
In the town around the town centre. So if it's...
And it's currently in the zoning code, and before it's struck permanently, I would like to understand why, because I personally found that a far more accessible space. It was much more highly populated. So I just had questions.
The other comment I'd make about Saturday market being there is when we think about the rest of the planning that's going on and the buildings that are going to go downtown and the way that the town centre and the light rail are coming into that area, unless there's a good reason, I don't understand why we would remove that, because it's designed for that exact reason, and that it would get high, I would suspect it would get high usage from people who would be there for living locally, which they don't currently do.
I share the same concerns.
We appreciate that. I just haven't had a chance to track down the staff who has the knowledge of how to answer that. So we will just keep that one open, and we'll get you an answer when I have the right people in the conversation.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Parna emailed that we can go ahead and close item number 6. And item number 7, Chair Weston.
So I loved this answer in a lot of ways. I just, if there was a specific thing that I could ask, again, in the packet, similar to what we were discussing for the water plan, is that there really is an effort to communicate these spaces in a map where people can be on their cell phones and see what's nearby, especially these publicly available spaces that are like the private ownership piece, because I think that that's one of those things where it can be really hard to know that you're in the right spot. And there's going to be all this investment in making sure that those are there, so making sure that people can actually find them and feel like the fun of exploring them and using them. Commissioner Parna.
On a very light note, to just waste this commission's time, I'm sorry. There was a Burt Lancaster movie, I think. Was it Burt Lancaster or?
Oops.
Yeah, it was called The Pool. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but basically this chap's having this major crisis, and then he's in the LA region, and he swims from pool to pool to pool to pool to get to his house. So it's that idea that there's a connectivity from where he's at to where he needs to go. But yes, it was private property, and he just cut across property lines, but I really like that idea because he can go from anywhere to anywhere he could traverse, and that's the point, right? That you have all these open spaces, you have all these trails, you can walk anywhere, and you'll find these surprising little, even now when I walk around, suddenly there's a trail that I hadn't seen before, right? So that's really nice, and that's the feeling I would like, but not in that creepy way that he did it. So.
Well, I do want to point out that some of the things that we have in this package and some of the things that are coming in the next package really do clarify how we maximize our open space potential, consolidating open spaces for adjacency, creating contiguous spaces across separate properties. So there's a lot that we're doing to work on creating more of a network of opportunities, even though it might not necessarily be always contiguous from one to the next, but having opportunities where that can happen, encouraging it to do so.
Okay, but this one can close. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 8, we don't have a staff response yet, but we'll work on it. Anything else we want to add to?
Can we just pause on that one? I didn't quite understand what the question was here. Formula for calculating open space?
They have a formula for calculating open space in residential lots. But if it subdivides or you're increasing density, that formula is not clear.
Oh.
This is for residential spaces, the open space ratio on a lot.
Yeah, and I just haven't had a chance to sit down with my team to take a look at the code and see what is totally applicable. So we just haven't had a chance to figure out what the answer to that would be.
What's the question, though?
What happens if you add an ADU? Is there a requirement for new open space, or what happens when it takes up open space?
Like non-permeable space? I'm still not understanding the question.
So my understanding is that there's a required amount of open space for residential developments. And if you continue to build and add on to the lot, now that we're at saying, hey, you can go to 6, or you potentially 2 ADUs on the property, what happens if you keep adding on to that? You're going to eventually come up into to hit open space requirements. Generally, what we're assuming is if there's a requirement and it limits your ability to develop on that site, it limits the ability to develop on that site. But there's some nuances with the open space math calculations that I just need to sit down with our team and just discuss the question.
Thank you. Got it. All right. Great. Okay.
Any other issues that you'd like to add to open space at this time?
Commissioner Copley.
Just wanted to voice my approval for Chair Weston's suggestion that we communicate the availability of and accessibility to open space. I think it's a fantastic suggestion. And then secondly, the Burt Lancaster film was The Swimmer. He was 52 years old. It was 1968.
Don't put that in the issues matrix.
I won't.
Are there any other open space additions?
No? Okay.
All right.
Great. And so then now we're on to landscaping. So Commissioner Copley, the first one here is climate resilient landscaping.
This can be closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Who the planning administrator is the next one. Thank you.
That was a good question, in my opinion, because it's the sort of phrasing that is almost, it's like completely unobvious what the right answer is. So I appreciated that.
And just the last one here. Oh, wait, that's not the last one. It just happens to flow over onto the next page. So the first one here, it started with a public comment, and then Commissioner Copley added on to it about resizing it, and Kim provided this staff comment and a screenshot of the actual design detail.
This is great. I applaud the addition of the diagram, and it looks as though we're getting 8 by 12 feet on the structural soil. versus the 5 requested. So in my view, this could be closed, but want to make sure the rest of the commission feels the same way.
I'm seeing nodding.
Well, I'm looking at it, but I also would like, just in addition to the diagram, a little bit more discussion around it. Just if somebody could walk me through it.
Just one moment.
Just need to navigate my screen here to get that back.
So Commissioner Van Nyman, my understanding is the mulch is 4x6, but the structural soil, which is really where the tree root is going to grow, is 8x12, which is quite a bit more than I was hoping for. We received a public comment, maybe a month or two back, requesting that.
I remember that comment.
Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to make sure there was at least the 5, and it looks as though we're planning 8 to 12 or 8x12. Because the structural soil is really what supports the tree growth as opposed to just the mulch that we see on the top.
That's correct.
So diagram was great.
So if you can imagine from above, if you're looking down, you're at tree level or you're on the sidewalk looking down, what you will visually see is the mulch. But what is happening underneath the sidewalk involves the structural soil. So there is much more space underneath the sidewalk that the tree can expand its roots and have a more equitable spread of its roots to mimic, for example, its canopy. So you'd have enough space for it to grow versus what had been a previous approach with street trees, where a lot of the roots would try to grow out of the space that was allowed. So the solution.
So does that address in the public comment that the one of the references was to the types of trees that are suitable in those spaces, and the degree to which you get a much larger selection when you move to the larger space, and there was a reference to a particular, whatever tree Bible of what trees are appropriate in what amount of space. Does this change that? Do you understand my question?
Yes, street trees are identified also in, there's a lot of reference in this issue matrix to the resiliency and landscaping plan, and street trees are also referenced in that plan. So more appropriate trees for the location in which they're provided.
And the
Right,
original
and so-
comment was thinking that the tree root space was a reflection of the actual well size, and this diagram is trying to explain that it's not. It is much bigger than the actual just grate and the well itself. So it actually
I'm going to make up some numbers. I'm going to make up some numbers and tell me that this is no longer the case. The comment was, we only have 6 trees we can plant in that space, and if we increase the space, we could have 50. So what I think I hear you saying is, we already do have more than 6. We have 35. Okay.
Those are totally made up numbers, but
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Just clarifying.
And it's not an issue based off of the question that came in. So we're
Got it.
actually
Perfect. Okay.
changing up the street trees based more on climate nowadays and whatnot, but it was also accompanied with an acknowledgement over time as people understood street trees need more tree roots than the standards for the actual roots grew.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, I just realized we have a misspelling in a name. I apologize for that. I want to leave number 4 open because we're going to create an edit about, I don't have that in there right now. Water use efficiency, is that sufficient?
Well, as I recall, those two things just didn't seem consistent to me, and I'm not sure that this necessarily addresses that. Those two things seemed the two uses that one a requirement and an encouraging something are not consistent.
Okay,
Can you clarify which is being encouraged and which is being?
I would have to go back and look in the document, but both verbs were used.
so for tonight, I'll just leave it open, and I'll go back to the staff that is drafting that section, and we can go through and just do a word search even, and take a look at it.
Okay. That's great. So we'll leave it open for now.
Leave it open. Okay. And Commissioner Parna had emailed that we can close 6 and 7. Are there any new landscaping related issues to add to the issues matrix? Okay, then that is it for this evening. Thank you so much for allowing us to close most of these. We'll continue to work on the remaining answers, and we'll come back to you with additional information.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next is our Redmond 2050 monthly update. Glenn, are you filling in on this?
I believe Becky is tonight.
Lovely. Thank you.
So the majority of the update is to just share with you some information that came from our downtown discussion yesterday. It was actually very, very well attended. We had about 60 attendees, over half of them in person. It was very well attended, even though we had a power outage and the HVAC was not working and we had to move rooms and the screen was down because the power was out. And we had a lot of patience with the people who had joined us and stayed with us for 2 hours yesterday. But it was really great, a lot of really good discussion, a lot of really good questions. So I do also want to share with you guys, I'll email it to you, but we have also added the PowerPoint to the website. So it's out there. And we have gathered up, and the staff team that was supporting all of these updates is working on creating a Q&A document from the questions that came in, and we'll be able to share that back out. Fortunately, because of the power outage, we didn't get a recording, which is unfortunate, but the actual PowerPoint is available. And the Q&A should also be very helpful. We'll have a lot of other opportunities for engagement, but if you have a chance, and again, I'll email it to you so you have a direct link in there, I would recommend looking through the PowerPoint because it is extensive. It's almost 60 slides. It really provides a really great overview of everything that we're looking at, from just the design standards, where we're at with them, what we think we're going in that direction. It talks about the consolidation of zoning and what the intents and purposes of all of that. Some of that you have seen, but it's sharing it out in a really public way, giving photographic examples of what we anticipate these areas to look like. And then we actually are sharing, I'll actually just share the screen here real quick. So we're sharing out the numbers, right? So what are we looking at? What are we planning? What's the draft today show? And we're changing up the pedestrian system. Here's the current draft of where the direction we're going in, right? So it provided a lot of very, very technical information on the standards, just sharing all of that out. And now we've cracked it back open. People know have been participating and helping us work through design standard updates, but now we actually have some specific proposals on board for the design standard updates. And so there's a lot of information in here as well. Just some background information about why we're doing what we're doing and what our goals are. And then it starts diving in. You know, we're going to do context-sensitive design for the first time. And what would that look like in Redmond? Then what do we look at from building form? Oh my gosh, there's a lot about it, right? How do we modify the building form options? We're going to change how we do building heights based on building design because people wanted to be able to do a little less. And we said, well, if you're building smaller, maybe you don't have to do as much. And so we're now going to have like a tiered system of building height by, just how much you want to put into it. So that's the proposal moving forward. There's a lot of information about what that might look like and what that could look. It's all draft at this point. Again, it's just the very first, hey, community, what do you think about it? But it would be great for you guys to get a preview of that if you can have a chance to read through the PowerPoint. And again, I'm not going to go through everything, but there's a lot of stuff in here. Examples, very, very specific intent statements for the first time ever. And looking at ways for flexibility, how you can move some things around. The new corner treatment proposals are in here as well. So lots and lots and lots of stuff in there. So we'll send you the email. But we had a lot of really good feedback, a lot of really good questions. There's a lot more to come. Obviously, we still haven't completely drafted the new code for downtown. So that is something that is going to continue over the next 6 weeks. And we're anticipating it being fully drafted by the end of July. Cross your fingers. And when we do have that done, we'll have some additional community outreach and community engagement opportunities. And so we were really excited about the attendance yesterday. That was such a great number. We had a lot of people who were really interested in it. So we anticipate there will continue to be extensive engagement over the course of the summer.
Can I ask, so for the design standards PowerPoint, you said that was up on the website?
I just got it up right before this meeting.
Where?
Yes, actually, if you go to Redmond 2050's website, I put a link on it right at the top. And actually, I'll show you right now. Excuse me. All right, so we had at the very top of the screen a link into the workshop. And so I just put the presentation and a link to a brand new page I designed today and got up there. It's learning more about what's happening in downtown. It just has some additional information and links to the zoning changes for downtown and other zoning consolidations. But the presentation and the poster are all right there. But you can access it directly from the Redmond 2050 homepage too.
That is awesome. Commissioner Coleman.
Yeah, just a quick question. How are you?
Sorry.
It's okay. Okay. How are you collecting and then assessing the feedback? Like, and will we get to see that? What's the process for that?
We are creating a document that tracked all of the questions and feedback that we got from that event, and we will share that out. We do that with all of our events. We do a summary report out. In this particular case, we're also doing it as not just here's the feedback that we got, but we're actually doing it in Q&A format. Here's the question, here's the answer. So that could be a very helpful resource ongoing for the community.
Thank you.
Other commissioner questions? All right.
Okay, and just a reminder, the next one is tomorrow evening at Marymore. And it'll be a very similar conversation, different nuances for Marymore, of course. But we encourage everybody who can join us in person to go ahead and come down and visit with us. If you can't come in person, again, we'll have the resources and materials all posted online. And we also had a lot of conversations with folks yesterday, and I plan on doing it again tomorrow, encouraging folks who own property, who have plans, especially plans that are anticipated for next year, to come in and set up a one-on-one conversation with us. So,
great. All right. Well, in that case, we will go to staff and commissioner updates. Glenn?
No major updates, just a reminder that the next meeting is July 10th. For that, we'll have a continued study session on the water system plan and review the issues matrix on that. But the main item really for the July 10th is what we're calling the comprehensive plan final review. All the different chapters and elements have been through Planning Commission and received recommendation. But since then, it's also gone through additional review by council and staff review. So there's a lot of little minor changes just for multitude of reasons, which we'll get into at that. But that's pretty much the final process where we'll review that final changes of that and in anticipation of a public hearing on July 24th. and a recommendation on these final drafts soon after, which then we will move to council for their final review and adoption in November. So July is kind of devoted to what we're calling the comprehensive plan final review. So, anything you want to add to that, Becky?
I do want to add that we hope that these changes and just clarifications and minor edits and updates are something that we can get through fairly quickly. We hope to get through and get a recommendation by the end of July, because our goal is to not have a planning commission meeting in August. That'll allow everybody a break. But also, the next thing on your agenda is the 2025 code package, and we're still in the process of creating those materials.
So I should just note, there are 3 meetings scheduled in July, the 10th, the 24th, and the 31st, so.
Right, and that's actually what I just wanted to raise, is just a reminder that this is one of those bonus months where we get to see each other 3 times.
And the 24th is really important for quorum, just
Right.
think of your calendars, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Aparna.
So for the changes that are coming, if they're minor, is it going to be red line so we can just zoom in on whatever's changed so that we don't waste our time revisiting stuff?
Yeah, we'll have some, we're actually formatting that right now, that there'll be comments that will highlight where these changes are. And a lot of it just textual,
Yeah, the report has a table that shows, okay, these are the changes that happened in these chapters of the elements. Here's the changes in the code, and it bullet points of that. And then in the red lines, we actually put omnibus is dash. This was the change. And so you can just do a quick breeze through, and if it doesn't say omnibus, it's already been reviewed. But as soon as it's an omnibus, you can see, oh, that's the change for this packet. And they are almost exclusively really minor changes.
Yeah, I just didn't want us to be revisiting the whole text, because that's not the purpose of it, right?
No,
definitely
It's just more, eventually a formality if most of the changes are minor.
All right, so are there additional staff updates? Nope. Additional commissioner updates? Commissioner, sorry.
I just
Commissioner
had a
Aparna.
question. We had a discussion a while back about having youth represented in the Plan Commission. I was just wondering if any movement on that?
Yeah, we are moving forward with that. It will be something that we'll be working on this fall for potential implementation next year.
Awesome.
Any other commissioner updates? All right, well, in that case, I look for a motion to adjourn. Any
So
motion
moved.
to adjourn? There we go.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then we are adjourned.